I was in love with my best friend's husband while she was on her deathbed. She saw it in my eyes and still asked me to protect her son. I promised. Then I married her husband, moved into her home, and spent 3 years making her child feel unwanted. I left a 7-year-old alone while he was vomiting with a fever because I didn't want to miss brunch. I canceled his Christmas to punish my husband. Now her son is in therapy because of me, my marriage is over, and the only person who forgave me is the little boy I destroyed. I told a 7-year-old boy that he wasn't my problem. He was lying on the couch with a 102-degree fever, crying for his dad, and I told him I had plans. I told him to drink some water and watch TV. I told my own children, 11 and 9, not to help him because it wasn't their responsibility. Then I put on my nicest dress, grabbed my purse, and walked out the front door to meet my sister-in-law for brunch. He was 7 years old. His mother was dead. His father was at work. And I left him alone because I didn't want to cancel my plans. I'm writing this because I need someone to know what I did. Not for sympathy. Not for advice. I need to say it out loud because maybe then I'll finally understand how I became this person. How I looked at a sick child, my husband's son, my best friend's baby, and decided he mattered less than mimosas. My name doesn't matter. I'm 38 years old. I was married to a man named Derek. I had 2 children from my first marriage. And I destroyed everything because I couldn't love a little boy who never did anything wrong except remind me of what I'd done. His name is Oliver. He's 8 now. I haven't seen him in 11 months. His mother was my best friend. Her name was Caitlin. We met in college, freshman year, assigned as roommates by some random housing algorithm. We were nothing alike. She was bubbly and optimistic and believed the best in everyone. I was guarded, cynical, practical. But somehow we clicked. For 15 years, she was my person. My emergency contact. The godmother to my children. The one I called at 2 a.m. when my first marriage fell apart. The one who held my hand through my divorce and told me I deserved better. She was the best person I ever knew. And I betrayed her in the worst way possible. Caitlin married Derek when we were 27. I was her maid of honor. I stood beside her at the altar and watched her promise to love him forever, and I smiled and cried and gave a toast about friendship and loyalty and how some bonds last a lifetime. I meant every word. At least I thought I did. Caitlin and Derek had Oliver when they were 30. I was there when he was born. I held him when he was 6 hours old, this tiny perfect thing with his mother's eyes and his father's chin, and I promised Caitlin I would always be there for him. If anything ever happens to me, she said, exhausted and happy in that hospital bed, promise me you'll look out for him. Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me anyway. I promise. I lied. Caitlin was diagnosed with cancer when Oliver was 4. It was aggressive. Fast. The kind that doesn't give you time to fight. 6 months from diagnosis to the end. I watched my best friend disappear piece by piece, watched her hair fall out and her body shrink and her smile become something she had to force. I was there. I brought meals. I watched Oliver when Derek needed to be at the hospital. I held her hand and told her she was going to beat this, even when we both knew she wasn't. And somewhere in those 6 months, something terrible happened. I fell in love with her husband. I didn't mean to. I didn't want to. But Derek and I were spending so much time together, both of us trying to hold everything together while Caitlin slipped away. Late nights after Oliver went to bed. Early mornings before the hospital visits. Shared grief, shared exhaustion, shared moments that felt too intimate. Nothing happened while she was alive. I need you to know that. I never touched him. Never told him how I felt. I buried it so deep I could almost pretend it wasn't there. But Caitlin knew. 2 weeks before she died, she called me to her hospital room. Alone. I see how you look at him, she said. I couldn't breathe. Caitlin, I would never. I know you wouldn't. Not while I'm here. She took my hand. Her fingers were so thin. But after I'm gone, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't let Oliver get lost. Whatever happens between you and Derek. Don't let my son become invisible. He's going to need someone to see him. I promised. I broke that promise too. Caitlin died on a Tuesday morning. Oliver was 4 years old. He asked why Mommy wasn't coming home, and Derek had to explain death to a child who still believed in Santa Claus. I was there for the funeral. For the grief. For the first terrible months when Derek could barely function and Oliver cried himself to sleep every night. I was there. And then I was more than there. Derek and I started dating 8 months after Caitlin died. I told myself it was natural. That we'd been through something traumatic together. That Caitlin would have wanted us to be happy. But part of me knew the truth. I'd been waiting. We got married 2 years later. I moved into the house Derek had shared with Caitlin, the house where Oliver had been born, the house that still had her photos on the walls and her handwriting on the growth chart in Oliver's room. I should have loved that little boy. He was a living piece of my best friend. Every time he laughed, I could hear her laugh. Every time he smiled, I could see her smile. But that's exactly why I couldn't love him. Because every time I looked at Oliver, I saw what I'd done. I saw the friend I'd betrayed. The promise I'd broken. The woman who trusted me with her son and her husband, and how I'd taken one and abandoned the other. Oliver was a constant reminder of my guilt. And instead of facing that guilt, I pushed him away. It started small. I'd pay more attention to my kids, Emma and Lucas, than to Oliver. I'd remember their favorite foods and forget his. I'd hang their artwork on the fridge and let his pile up on the counter. I'd tuck them in at night and tell Oliver he was old enough to put himself to bed. He was 5. Derek noticed. Of course he noticed. You treat him differently, he said one night after Oliver had gone to bed. He feels it. I'm still adjusting. We all are. It's been a year. These things take time. I promised I'd try harder. I didn't. The gap between my children and Oliver grew wider every year. Emma and Lucas had dance lessons, sports teams, birthday parties with all their friends. Oliver had hand-me-down activities, whatever was convenient, parties that got smaller each year because I forgot to send invitations. My children learned from me. They saw how I treated their stepbrother, and they absorbed it. Emma started calling him that kid instead of his name. Lucas would take toys from Oliver's room and claim they were his. When I caught them being cruel, I looked the other way. I was teaching them to be terrible people. Just like me. The breaking point came 3 months ago. Derek had an important work trip. 3 days out of town. He asked me to watch Oliver, obviously, since I was his stepmother and we lived in the same house. Oliver got sick the day Derek left. Fever, cough, the whole thing. He was miserable. He wanted his dad. He wanted someone to take care of him. But I had plans. My sister-in-law, Derek's sister Michelle, had invited me to brunch. We'd been trying to schedule it for weeks. I'd bought a new outfit. I was looking forward to it. I decided Oliver could handle being sick alone. He was 7. Kids get sick all the time. He had water, he had crackers, he had the TV remote. What else did he need? I have to go out for a few hours, I told him that morning. He looked up at me from the couch, face flushed, eyes glassy. Can you stay? I don't feel good. You'll be fine. Just rest. Where's Daddy? He's on his trip. Remember? His lip quivered. I want Daddy. Daddy's not here. You need to be a big boy. I called Emma and Lucas into the living room. Oliver's not feeling well. I need you two to not bother him while I'm gone. Do we have to take care of him? Emma asked, wrinkling her nose. No. He's not your responsibility. Just leave him alone. I said that. I told my children that their 6-7-year-old stepbrother was not their responsibility. That they should ignore him. That caring for him wasn't their job. I walked out that door and I didn't look back. I was gone for 4 hours. When I came home, Oliver was worse. The fever had spiked. He'd thrown up on the couch and didn't know how to clean it up. He was crying, alone, covered in vomit, calling for a father who wasn't there. Emma and Lucas were in their rooms. Playing video games. Exactly what I told them to do. I should have felt horrified. I should have felt ashamed. I should have rushed to Oliver and held him and apologized and taken care of him like a mother should. Instead, I felt annoyed. Annoyed that my day had been ruined. Annoyed that I had to clean up this mess. Annoyed that this child existed at all. I cleaned him up. I gave him medicine. I put him to bed. And I called Derek and told him everything was fine. Derek came home 2 days later to find Oliver still sick, clingy, traumatized from being left alone. And Oliver told him everything. Derek didn't yell. He just looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Not anger. Not disappointment. Something worse. Recognition. Like he was finally seeing who I really was. You left him alone, he said. While he was sick. To go to brunch. He was fine. He was not fine. He's 7 years old, and he was scared and sick and alone, and you left him because you had plans. Derek, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. You told our children not to help him. You specifically instructed them to ignore their sick brother. Stepbrother. The word came out before I could stop it. Derek's face changed. Stepbrother, he repeated. Is that how you see him? As less than your children? I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. You've always meant it like that. I just didn't want to see it. He was quiet for a long moment. I'm canceling the Christmas trip. What? Derek, no. We've been planning Aspen for months. The kids are excited. Your kids are excited. Oliver doesn't even know about it because you didn't bother to include him in the planning. That's not. The trip is canceled. All of us are staying here. As a family. That's not fair. Not fair? You left my son alone while he was sick. You told your children to ignore him. And you want to talk to me about fair? He walked away. I should have apologized. I should have accepted the consequence. I should have used that moment to finally confront what I'd been doing to Oliver for 3 years. Instead, I got revenge. If Derek wanted to cancel my Christmas trip, fine. Then I would cancel Oliver's Christmas. I returned the presents I'd bought him. Not that there were many. I'd spent $400 on Emma, $350 on Lucas, and $75 on Oliver. But I returned even that. Took the money and bought myself a spa gift card. I told Derek that Oliver wasn't allowed to go on any special outings with him. No Father's in Time. No trips to the movies or the park. If I couldn't have my vacation, he couldn't have his son. I made that calculation. A child's relationship with his father versus my ski trip. And I chose the ski trip. When Derek found out about the returned presents, he was devastated. When he found out about the outing ban, he was furious. You're punishing a 7-year-old because I canceled a vacation you shouldn't have had in the first place. I'm setting boundaries. You're being cruel. To a child. Caitlin's child. The mention of her name hit me like a slap. Don't talk about Caitlin. Why? Because you know what she'd say if she could see you right now? Stop. She trusted you. She made you promise to take care of him. And this is what you've done. I didn't ask for this. The words exploded out of me. I didn't ask to raise someone else's child. I didn't ask to be reminded of her every single day. I didn't ask to look at him and see everything I did wrong. The silence that followed was absolute. Derek stared at me. Everything you did wrong? I'd said too much. Way too much. What did you do wrong? His voice was quiet. Dangerous. Nothing. I just meant. You were in love with me. While she was dying. I always wondered, but I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself you were just being a good friend. Derek. You were waiting for her to die. So you could have me. That's not true. Isn't it? You can't love Oliver because he reminds you of what you did. Of who you were while your best friend was dying. He's evidence. And you've been punishing him for it since the day you moved in. I couldn't deny it. Because it was true. Every word. Derek took Oliver that night. Packed bags for both of them. Said he needed time to think. He didn't come back. The first week, I told myself he was overreacting. Derek had always been emotional. He just needed space. He'd calm down, remember everything we'd built together, and come home. He didn't come home. He filed for divorce 3 weeks later. The papers arrived on Christmas Eve. I stood in my living room, surrounded by my children's presents, holding a document that officially ended my marriage. My lawyer said I'd probably keep the house since it had been purchased after our marriage. I'd get reasonable visitation with Oliver. I didn't want visitation with Oliver. That realization hit me like a punch to the chest. I'd spent 3 years resenting this child, neglecting him, treating him like an inconvenience. And when faced with the possibility of never seeing him again, I felt relief. What kind of person feels relief at losing a 7-year-old? The kind of person I'd become. My children noticed the divorce differently than I expected. Emma, at 11, was angry. But not at her stepfather. You ruined everything, she said to me a week after Derek left. Oliver was nice to me. He always shared his toys and never told on me when I was mean to him. And you taught me to be horrible to him. Emma, I never. You did. You always acted like he was less important. Like he didn't matter. So I acted like that too. And now I feel sick about it. She locked herself in her room and wouldn't come out. Lucas was quieter. He didn't accuse me of anything. He just stopped talking to me. 9 years old and already learning that silence was safer than confrontation. I taught him that too. Derek's family turned on me immediately. Michelle, my sister-in-law, the one I'd been having brunch with when I left Oliver alone, called me 3 days after Derek moved out. I can't believe I was sitting there with you while that baby was homesick and alone. I didn't think it was a big deal. He's 7. He had a fever of 102. You left him alone so you could eat eggs Benedict with me. Michelle, I'm sorry. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to Oliver. Except you can't, because Derek's not letting you anywhere near him. She hung up. I tried calling Derek. He wouldn't answer. I tried texting. No response. I drove to his mother's house, where I'd heard he was staying. She met me at the door. You have some nerve showing up here. I need to talk to Derek. He doesn't want to talk to you. Please. I want to explain. Explain what? How you neglected his son for 3 years. How you left a sick child alone to go to brunch. How you canceled his Christmas presents out of spite. She shook her head. Caitlin was a saint. She trusted you with everything. Her son. Her husband. And you spit on her memory. That's not fair. Caitlin's been dead for 4 years. And you've been dead to this family for longer than that. We just didn't know it. She closed the door. I stood on that porch for 10 minutes, crying, realizing that I'd lost more than a marriage. I'd lost an entire family. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. I got the house. I got joint custody of Emma and Lucas, though they spent more and more time asking to stay with their biological father, my first husband, who was suddenly the more appealing option. I got nothing from Derek except freedom. Freedom from Oliver. Freedom from the reminder. Freedom from the guilt. And somehow, that freedom felt like the worst punishment of all. Because now I had to sit alone with what I'd done. I started therapy 2 months after the divorce. My therapist's name was Dr. Kim. She specialized in blended families, in step-parent relationships, in people who'd made terrible mistakes and needed to understand why. Tell me about Caitlin, she said in our first session. I cried for 20 minutes. I told her everything. The friendship. The cancer. The feelings I developed for Derek while my best friend was dying. The guilt that had been eating me alive for 4 years. And Oliver represents that guilt, she said. Every time I looked at him, I saw her. Saw what I did. What I was thinking while she was dying. So you pushed him away to avoid facing it? I pushed him away because I couldn't stand the reminder. Because loving him would mean admitting that I'd betrayed her. And I couldn't do that. Why not? Because if I admitted it, I have to hate myself. And I wasn't ready for that. Are you ready now? I thought about Oliver. About his face when I told him I had plans. About the way he'd looked at me, sick and feverish, hoping I'd stay. About how he'd been left alone, covered in vomit, crying for a father who wasn't there and a stepmother who didn't care. Yes, I said. I'm ready. I wrote Oliver a letter. I didn't expect Derek to let him read it. But I needed to write it anyway. Dear Oliver, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every moment I made you feel invisible. Every time I chose my children over you. Every day I let you believe you weren't as important, as loved, as wanted. You deserved better. You deserved a stepmother who saw you as a gift, not a reminder. You deserved someone who kept the promise she made to your mother. I broke that promise. I failed you. And I failed her. Your mom was my best friend. She was kind and good and she loved you more than anything in the world. She made me promise to look after you. She trusted me with the most precious thing she had. And I let her down. I let you down. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just need you to know that none of this was your fault. You did nothing wrong. You were a perfect little boy who just wanted to be loved. And I was too broken to give you that. I hope your dad gives you the most amazing Christmas. I hope you get everything you ever wanted. I hope you grow up knowing that you are worthy of love, even though I never showed you that. I'm sorry, Oliver. I'm so sorry. Maybe someday I'll be able to say it to your face. Until then, please know that I'll be trying to become the person your mom believed I was. Love, your stepmother. I sent it to Derek with a note asking him to give it to Oliver when he thought the time was right. A week later, I got a text. From Derek. He read it. He cried. He said he forgives you. Because that's the kind of kid he is. Better than either of us deserve. I'm not ready to forgive you. I may never be. But thank you for finally seeing him. Even if it took losing everything to get there. I read that text 100 times. He forgives you. A 7-year-old boy, neglected for 3 years, left alone while sick, had more grace in his heart than I'd shown in my entire life. Caitlin raised him well. Even from the grave, she was a better mother than I'd ever been. Emma came to me last month. She's 12 now. Growing up. Starting to understand things she couldn't understand before. I want to apologize to Oliver, she said. For how I treated him. I started crying. That's really mature of you, Emma. I've been thinking about it a lot. About how I just followed your lead. About how easy it was to be mean to him because you made it seem normal. She paused. I don't want to be like that anymore. I don't want you to be either. We talked for 2 hours that night. About Caitlin. About what I'd done. About how grief and guilt can twist people into versions of themselves they don't recognize. Emma asked if she could write Oliver a letter too. I said yes. She showed it to me before she sent it. It was short, simple, honest. Dear Oliver, I'm sorry I wasn't a good stepsister. You were always nice to me, and I was mean to you. That wasn't fair. I'm trying to be better now. I hope you have a good life. Maybe someday we can be friends for real. Love, Emma. Derek sent a photo back. Oliver holding both letters, smiling. He's lost 2 front teeth. He's gotten taller. He looks so much like Caitlin that my chest aches. That was last week. I still haven't seen him in person. Derek says he's not ready for that. Oliver's in therapy now, working through the rejection, the neglect, the trauma of being unwanted in his own home. I did that. I put a 7-year-old in therapy because I couldn't face my own guilt. It's been 11 months since Derek left. I'm sitting in this house alone tonight. Emma and Lucas are with their father. The silence is so loud I can barely stand it. I had everything. A husband who loved me. A stepson who just wanted to belong. Children who looked to me for guidance. A chance to honor my best friend's memory by loving the son she left behind. I threw it all away. Because I couldn't look at Oliver without seeing Caitlin. Because loving him would mean admitting what I'd done. Because it was easier to push him away than to face the monster I'd become. Caitlin trusted me. With her dying breath, she asked me to watch over her son. And I promised I would. Then I married her husband, moved into her house, and treated her child like he was invisible. If she could see me now, she would hate me. She should hate me. I hate myself. But hate isn't enough. Regret isn't enough. Letters and apologies and therapy sessions aren't enough. Oliver spent 3 years of his childhood feeling unwanted. 3 years wondering why his stepmother wouldn't look at him. 3 years carrying the weight of my guilt without even understanding what he'd done wrong. Nothing. He did nothing wrong. He was just a little boy who lost his mother and wanted someone to love him. And I couldn't do it. Because I was too busy being the villain in his story. If you're reading this and you have stepchildren. If you've ever felt resentment toward them for existing. If you've ever treated them as less than your biological children. Stop. Stop right now. Because they didn't ask for this. They didn't ask for their family to fall apart. They didn't ask for a new parent to come into their lives and make them feel invisible. They're just kids. Scared, confused kids who want to be loved. And if you can't love them, leave. Don't stay and destroy them. I stayed. I destroyed. And now I have a house full of photos of a family that doesn't exist anymore, a best friend I'll never see again, and a stepson who forgave me even though I never earned it. Oliver forgave me. At 7 years old, after everything I did, he found it in his heart to forgive me. That's who Caitlin raised. That's her legacy. And mine? Mine is the silence. The empty rooms. The knowledge that I had a chance to be part of something beautiful, and I burned it to the ground because I couldn't face my own reflection in a child's eyes. The children in blended families didn't choose this. They didn't choose to lose a parent. They didn't choose to gain a step-parent. They're just trying to survive a situation adults created. And if you can't love them like your own, at least have the decency to not destroy them. I didn't have that decency. I punished a child for my sins. And now I live with the echo of a promise I broke to a dying woman who believed in me. Don't be me. Just love them. It's not that hard. It really isn't. I just made it impossible.